DJ and PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We had Brandon Huffman on earlier this morning, national recruiting editor for 24/7 Sports. The Utes have a top 10 offensive lineman visiting, a 5-star quarterback visiting at BYU. And this is some of the things he said caught your attention, got you focused in this new era.
Yeah, we've heard so much about the money, and Kyle has said, the top 25 are going to reflect the top 25 NILs, and I think it's important, but he also talks about, he uses the Devils as an example. The money isn't there in top 25, but, they're having good camaraderie. It's a young coach, a lot of enthusiasm, development, blah, blah, blah. We look what we did with this running back, came out of nowhere, and make him a draft pick, and this quarterback in his first year, now they're talking about him being a Heisman guy. And I think it's great that kids and their parents or whoever's involved, they look at everything. Just simply don't take the actual whoever pays me the most. That's great, and that's important, but there's other factors into it. And I think that bodes well for our schools here in state, because they have different things. BYU, they have the religious angle that they can sell, but I think they've gone beyond that because they're getting talent that normally wouldn't. We would look to that. Now, this Ryder Lyons kid is a Latter-day Saint, so that fits in well. But I also don't think that you should come to BYU to play football just because you're an LDS kid and that's an LDS school. You're going to play football. How will you be developed? And if you are a high school kid of note, yeah, you should think about the NFL if that's what you're thinking about, if that's what you want. Some may not want it, but if that's what you want, and if you are this highly touted, where can I go where they can develop me and put me in that position to be drafted a la a Zach Wilson, whoever it might be. And then it's up to you when you get to the NFL. I mean, they can't control that. And Zach Wilson still is in the NFL for that matter. He's not out of the league. He hasn't starred, but he's still in the league. And so that stuff is important. In Utah, they have a lot of stuff to offer too that goes beyond the dollars. I think, and obviously you would speak to this here when I'm done talking, that we're fine with everybody receiving some financial compensation. We just don't want it to be the overriding factor in all decisions, because then it doesn't come down to all these other things that matter in life. It's just a dollar figure. And so, yeah, get them paid, but then have them want to make decisions that go beyond simply the most amount of money.
I get all of that, but if someone offers you an overwhelming amount of money, you're probably going to take it. I mean,
what is an overwhelming amount of money compared to what you were used to, what the other schools are offering?
That is different for every person. There's no question about that. People are in different situations.
And great, go ahead and do that. But that doesn't mean I can't get other kids a Scattaboo who wasn't going to get all that develop him, and then I beat you.
Football talent scouting is imperfect because you don't play enough games. There isn't enough sample size for anyone to know. The best recruiters acknowledge that they're going to miss a third to a half the time. With the transfers, maybe you cut down on that a little bit, but you do lose something when the roster is all about the money. And Kalani talked about this in the beginning when they didn't have all the money, and it didn't look like they were going to pay all the money, and they turned down a truck deal. It's a very different time now. It wasn't that long ago. And his point was, if you're all about the money, how much time you spend working at football? If you don't work at football, you don't get better, and then the team gets beat and the coach gets fired. So no coach is going to sign off on that.
Right.
But there's always going to be a team on the outside that wants to be on the inside that comes into money. And you can go through every decade of college football. Texas Tech is the latest.
Go ahead, fine.
I do think that the other stuff matters because there's a market, and we see it in our businesses. We see it in radio and TV, and other people see it out there in whatever their business is, that the people hiring know the market for whatever the industry is. This is what you pay for this job. This is what you pay for that job. And so the salaries don't necessarily get that far out of line. So it does come down to other stuff. It does come down to relationships and your confidence in leadership.
Yeah.
Which, at a radio station, that's one thing, right? But is it really that different? I mean, it's talking about in football, I believe in this coach. You're talking about confidence in leadership. Is this going to be well run?
Texas Tech can have all the money that they want.
Right.
But that doesn't mean your school, our schools here in town, and then the rest of the schools in the community in the conference can't compete and beat Texas Tech. Now, they did it in softball, but that's a different story. They bring the gal over from Stanford.
And pitching's so important.
And they can throw her 100 times in a row.
Right.
You don't need 4 or 5.
It's an underhand motion, not overhand, which makes it really different from baseball, which is the most logical comparison.
And good for them. They got to the final, and maybe they end up just dominating softball left and right. We'll see how it goes. But I just don't know that that's in football. And one player is a great player to have, but you need a whole slew of them.
And most people don't have the pockets, so I do think that the money will be about the same for a lot of players at a lot of positions, and then they will ultimately have to pick based on all the stuff they've traditionally picked on. Who can get you to the NFL? This coach runs a system that's going to highlight my talents.
That's what we want.
As recently as yesterday.
We want that as fans.
Right.
We don't want to just see, you paid the most, so you won.
Right.
That's not competition.
There was a time in the history of Major League Baseball where that happened and it frustrated people and there was a great outcry, but then again, 5-6 years past it and people spent money on the wrong people and a team with less money figured out a way, if not to win it, to at least get really close. A couple teams definitely mastered the art of the tear down and build up with the young guys. That's how Kansas City did it and that's how Houston did it. So over time, people found other paths.
Yeah.
So even if you hit that stretch where it just seems like it's all about the money, take a breath. In a couple years, people will try to figure out another path forward.
And then in football, they don't necessarily live up to it. I mean, there's a kid from Southern California, Malachi. He was all that in a bag of chips,
and
he goes
gone
to
through
SC.
3 schools.
And then our kid here at American Fork, Manson, who's 5'10", goes to Boise and beats him out.
Baby.
Yeah, beats him out.
And now Malachi Nelson is at, wait for it,
right.
UTEP.
Yeah, right. And he's down there in the hotbed of quarterbacking in the L.A. area, just south of that. Goes, and we see that. They just flood to SC, but only one guy can play. And they all, SC, have they never not had a 4 or 5 star at quarterback, it seems, in the last 25 years. And they're all coming up to Freeway, and they go there, and most of them are busts when you think about it.
It's true.
Yeah. And then they go, and he goes to Boise, and the little dude out of American Fork, right? Manson beats him out. Our guy beats him out, and he's shorter than I am.
Yes.
And he's winning games, and he's getting into the playoff. So that's the cool thing. I think that's what we want as fans of the game. We don't want it to just be a money-oriented result. We want, let's see, Texas has all the money in the world, right? The Devils take them to overtime. And in a game that will live on, one of these few games where the losing team, that was an awesome game. And it was. And this team that had just won, they won 3 games the year before. They're on the verge of beating Texas.
We need to compile a list. What's the top 10 games that the losing team really enjoyed?
Well,
for the
here,
losing fan base.
Yeah, it's the Rose Bowl.
For the Utes, it's the Rose Bowl. For ASU,
the first time.
Yeah, the first one against Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And then the ASU, the playoff game.
Yeah, that was a great game. Everybody acknowledges, wow, what a game. I mean, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. Yeah. That's the way it works.
One thing that the schools with all the money have going against them is, yes, kids want the money, but how many kids are willing to pass on the playing time? Now, you have a story that, some kids will pass on the playing time for the money, because you did the story of the kid who went across the country and he was what was the term? Banjo? No, slap.
Punch and Judy.
Punch and Judy, yeah. Punch and Judy, yeah, just slapped the ball to the opposite field. And he gets $250,000. Okay, that kid didn't value playing, but other kids do. Jackson Dart was another highly thought of quarterback at USC. And then they got a coaching change, and they got a guy coming in, and he's not going to play, so he leaves. Ole Miss is hardly a football power, but he went there.
Yeah, but Lane Kiffin is a football power.
But see, that goes back to the leadership, the coaching. Oh, this coach, he knows his stuff. I'm going to this school. And he didn't go to Alabama, LSU, USC,
well, you gotta
Oregon,
have an
Ohio
opening,
State,
though.
Penn State. You do. People. That's the point. People want to play.
Yeah.
And so you got to figure out what you have if you don't have the most money and pitch that.
And maybe it can't be done at the absolute highest level, meaning you won't make the final 2 or the final 4. But you could have really good times along that line. If the Sun Devils rolled out an 11-3 season for the rest of my life and lost in some playoff, I'd sign up right now.
You're pretty happy, right?
Yeah. For where they are on the pecking order, because they're not that high.
So Kyle's told us a lot of things that are true, but nobody's right every time, all the time. So if he's wrong about the top 25, are going to parallel, he said the top 25 in money are going to parallel the top 25 in the poll. And he has said that multiple times in multiple situations. If he's wrong, I don't think he's going to be wrong at the top, which is what you just alluded to.
No, I don't think he's going to be wrong at the top. I'm not sure he's going to be wrong at all because I think there'll be a great differential between 1 and 2 and 24 and 25.
In 20, wait, say that again?
1 and 2 are going to be paying enormous money.
Oh, and okay, I thought you meant the year.
25.
Yes, I thought
you're ranked, but it's an enormous gap between the two of you.
I think that's that.
So he can be right.
That's how the numbers lie. And they lie. That's how they lie in preseason polls. Mm-hmm. Oh, you were picked first, you're picked 7th. There's a big gap. In the Big 12 last year, that gap was 1 game between 1st and 7th, the top 7 teams. So you do have to be careful with these lists. That there are gaps between numbers, sometimes that are way bigger than you think, and sometimes there's barely a gap at all. So I think you can move inside that money list a little bit. The other thing we haven't talked about is injuries. Sometimes you can buy depth, but sometimes you can't. You have talent, but you don't have experience. So the money will get you to the ballpark, and then you find a little wiggle room after that to make yourself better.
I think what you need is you can't tell kids, I need you to make a major financial sacrifice.
Oh, you got to be in the ballpark. The team that has the 7th biggest payroll can win the title. The team that has the 17th best, I'm not convinced they can.
And that's an individual thing. We talked
Define
about
major. Yeah.
Who's the tight end? Kincaid.
Oh, Kincaid.
For Alabama. He sacrificed by not going to Alabama to take the money. He stayed here at Utah. Mm-hmm. But he comes from a 2-parent home that apparently is fair, as I understood it. He wasn't necessarily making a financial sacrifice because he was still living a good life. Now, he didn't take as much money.
He didn't take the most money.
There's two different things. Just because you don't take as much money does not mean you're making a financial sacrifice.
He didn't take the most money, the $1 million, but he also didn't make zero at Utah.
And his life, his
life is
family.
Right. Now, here's the other thing. Timing matters. If Alabama had made that offer when he was leaving USD, maybe.
Well, they don't make that offer because he didn't have any stature when he was leaving.
But maybe they could have figured out who's a good player, or they're just buying finished products.
Yeah, they don't need to do that.
They're not going to go buy the plant at Home Depot or the nursery or whatever and plant it and grow the tomatoes. They just go into the grocery store and pick.
Particularly if they've got a
tomatoes.
Need.
Yeah.
They can. Yeah, they obviously had a need at tight end.
And see,
for
playing
whatever
time
reason, they were a
figures
little
out
short at that position.
They had an NFL guy and they wanted another one. just stacking first-round draft picks. Here we go.
But I think that we'll continue to see that. So,
but see, that's where the
my
leverage
opinion is it's not at all hopeless.
Exactly, and that's where the playing time thing can factor in. And who are you playing for?
And your situation, you're with your guys, and this is what you poured your heart and soul into, and you like the team, you like the guys, and maybe you got a girlfriend there, whatever it might be.
And so you don't leave for a 10% raise, but you would leave for a 25 or 50% raise. The money's got to be in the ballpark.
And
everybody defines the ballpark
depending
differently.
on what your situation is.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that that's the case, and college football won't simply be money. Because even at the NFL, it's not that.
Well,
and that's what we want. That's one of the reasons why the NFL is exciting, is because your team has a shot. Buffalo is not a huge market, but they draft Josh Allen and then do some other good stuff. And they haven't gotten to the top, I understand it, but nevertheless, they've been competitive for many seasons now, and it looks like they will continue to be competitive for what, the next 4 or 5 years at least?
Josh Allen's playoff record, I've seen it separated out home and away, and I've seen it separated out for each round. This is what he does in wild card games. This is what he does in AFC title games. You really need to separate out what he does against the Chiefs and what he does against everybody else. That's the line for that guy.
Yeah. I mean, right now the Bills are the late 80s and 90s Jazz.
Yeah.
Really good.
They're really good.
Great runs. You didn't quite get over the top, but man, you had some, and there's something to be said for that, man. And it's the city of Buffalo, where in October you got 3 feet of snow, and so what? It's not a glamour market, and yet they're really good. That's what we want. That's what we want in college football. We don't want it to just be so much money driven, because then it gets boring. You start to get to the middle of October, and I've sort of tuned out game day, because it seems like they're just talking about the same 4 or 5 teams all the time.
You don't have to convince me. I tuned it out before you.
You did. But I was in hotels and stuff, and
that matters.
And I don't have places to go when I'm traveling, and that's one thing you did. And so, but I've gotten away from it. I want to see more stories. I want to see more teams. Colorado was fun this year. I went over there when they played the Utes, and they had the Fox thing. And I'd been over on that campus on senior day, and you would have thought
dead.
School was not in session.
It was dead. Yes.
It's like the day after Christmas. And then to go over there this year and to see all the excitement and all the energy, that was fun for those folks. That's what I want to see. If you do things right, like the Utes have done for many years, you should be able to be rewarded. And we'll see how BYU goes and if they can sustain the success that they've had.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. Everything you missed in this show will get you up to speed next. Shohei's back on the hill. That and the NBA Finals, Game 5 to the Thunder. Stay with us.
Hey, bro.
You hear us every day with our crazy opinions.
Hey, what you doing?
Well, now it's time to hear from you.
Hey, great show.
Download the KSL Sports app and fire off your thoughts with the call-in tab on the bottom of your screen.
Your show is fantastic. It's the one that captivates me the most.
You can tell PK to stop singing.
G-Bang!
Let Jake and Ben know what you really think of the Jazz. Woo! Tell Hans and Scotty about your favorite barbecue spot or what color of tie JJ should be wearing on TV. The best entries will be played on the air. Download the KSL Sports app now and hit the call-in button to let your voice be heard.
I think you guys do an incredible job.
This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
9 a.m. Slacker Radio Headlines brought to you by Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan Wealth today, your local trusted financial fiduciary, 801-899-7600, or visit the website at TrajanWealth.com. So many things happened today, PK. We talked baseball earlier today. We didn't mention College World Series. They had a no-no.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Kid for Arkansas threw the third no-hitter in College World Series history.
Yeah, and then one of his buddies was on the other team, LSU, was it? And then goes over and gives him a big hug after the game.
Elimination game, Arkansas knocking out LSU.
Yeah, and then UCLA had a big rain. That always happens there. It seems like every year.
Thunderstorms come in, rain delay. They got to finish that game today to find out who Arkansas plays next. That's a winner's bracket game.
Uh-huh.
Whoever wins that is one win away from the final series.
Yeah.
Shohei's back on the hill, throwing 100 miles an hour and 17 pitches over 95 miles an hour.
Yes.
Figure he's a scratch golfer and he runs when he puts
like
a ball.
Bo Jackson.
Yeah, when he puts a ball in the
a big
gap,
dude.
he is on second base very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you wouldn't think a guy that big would move
He's
that
not
well.
a sprinter. He doesn't have a sprinter's body.
No, he does not. But neither did Bo Jackson, right?
Right.
All they do is get from point A to point B really fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Ellie De La Cruz, like that's a sprinter's body.
Yeah, he's got legs that won't quit.
Yeah.
And those strides.
And that's why when the ball goes in the gap, he's on third base before you bat an eye.
Yeah. We'll see what he does, you know. if he could sustain a several-year pitching career. I'm not so sure. I get he throws super hard, but you gotta do more than that. These guys are used to having pitchers throw super hard. I mean, Randy Johnson, for all his heat, it was that slider, and of course he had that stride that looked like he was right in your face by the time he released the ball. So, but I mean, Shohei he's an international story, unlike anything that we have ever seen in terms of just capturing the imagination of two countries.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And yet, here he is.
Right? For sure. He's a guy who lived up to the hype. I remember reading about him when he was over there.
Yeah.
And he was 16, 17 years old. He's fulfilled that.
He's 30 now. I don't know, do they think the Dodgers are talking internally about how do we extend his career, or they're spending so much money as how do we win a World Series this year and we'll worry about everything else later? I mean, there was the whole he'll be back in July, and now here it is June, and
well,
he's back.
but I mean, I think, we would say he won't be back in July. I mean, he won't be back until July. He's not back now. We wouldn't say this if he went out to San Bernardino and pitched in the single A. Mm-hmm. But because of his bat, they're not going to send him away.
They are not.
The rehabs are going to be right before our eyes.
He puts butts in seats so you don't send him away. And then he steps into the batter's box, and he drives in a run in the third inning, and he drives in a run in they had a big fourth inning to win the game. They scored 5 times. And he drives in. He didn't even hit a home run. But it doesn't matter because he's Shohei Ohtani, and it's 2 hits.
Right. They can't afford team-wise.
There's literally no one who would do that.
Yeah. So I think it's misleading to say he's back. They're still targeting that same timeline for back. And I don't think
until he throws 5 innings, he's not back? 5 innings being what starters do these days.
Yes.
They don't even really do 6 anymore.
I don't think we'll see that until minimally the end of July. And then the idea, clearly, is to have him ready in October.
Yes.
And how about Kershaw, man? He shut out the Giants for 6-7 innings the other day. The old man getting it done.
In the regular season. Do you trust him in the playoffs? There've just been so many bad outings.
There has been, but I mean, there's been a couple of good ones too. It's not been exclusively bad.
He's still a good story regardless. Yes, there have been some good ones. You're right. And the thing these days is it seems like you have to have 8 starting pitchers so the 5 of them can be healthy. I mean, you want to complain about your team being down a couple of starting pitchers, but as soon as you do, whoever you're talking to is like, yeah, well, my team's down, and they got a couple of pitchers who are down. It's the attrition is just over the top these days.
Yeah, I was listening to somebody saying they just throw too hard, too much.
Throw too hard, too much, and too much breaking stuff thrown really hard.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, just if they were throwing a fastball, that maybe the arm could endure that. But the sliders and curves.
Yeah, and your body's not built for that.
Nope. No one's is, which is why so many guys are going down. Shohei, for all his pitching prowess, has had, I think, 3 seasons where he's thrown 100 innings. He's gotten to 130.
Yeah, I always see him, my own vision of him, as a part-time pitcher.
Yeah, agreed. But if he's really good in the part-time, and if you build a roster that you know is going to get you to the postseason one way or another, which the Dodgers
he'll
ought
never
to do.
I think it would be foolish to have him be a workhorse.
Yeah. Doesn't see he's 30 and he's never been that. I don't see why that would start now. Spent a lot of time this morning talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are now 1 game away from what seems like an inevitable NBA Finals victory. They lead the series for the first time in Game 5. But here they are, up 3-2. So 3 things that really went well for them last night. Jalen Williams, 40 points. We were talking about him yesterday. Can he step it up again? He's getting better and better as the series goes along, and that was his career playoff high, 40. He'd never done that. He had a 34-point game earlier in this playoff run, not in this series, but in this playoff run. So that's one thing. I mean, he was awesome, and they weren't just empty points. I mean, they were big points and game-changing, momentum-changing shots that leads down to 2, and he hit a big 3. The turnovers, I thought, were huge, 23 of them. Only 11 for the Thunder, but 23 for the Pacers. They were just giving the ball away.
Well, it was all in that bunch after they'd made a great comeback.
Really racked them up there.
Yeah.
That was
tidal wave, and they couldn't get out of it.
And sometimes, not all, as Locke will tell us, not all turnovers are created
Those
equal. Those turnovers.
It was like a Groundhog Day.
Yeah. 23 turnovers led to 32 points, whereas 11 turnovers for the Thunder led to 9. So you're looking at a 23-point swing in points off turnovers and an 11-point game.
Right.
And then the third thing is Halliburton, admire the guts, but at some point are you hurting your team even if you're trying to gut it out? And the 4 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists. He did not make a basket. All his points were at the free throw line. I think we're into you're not helping your team territory, but
well, they can't win if he does that again. The series end season.
And then there's an argument that they can't do it without him, which is why he's on the court.
Well, they were without him.
Yeah,
that was not Tyrese Halliburton.
That's not Tyrese. Who are you and what have you done with Tyrese Halliburton?
He was hurt.
Yep. He left with the calf all wrapped up and went back to the locker room and came back. He still played 34 minutes.
But he wasn't effective at all.
Not at all. So I think those 3 things really, really shaped the game. I don't know if you saw something else you want to shout out in that mix. I mean, I just take Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 31 and 10 for granted. I just blew right through that.
He is a quiet, in all ways, superstar. As Barry Trammell told us from Oklahoma, he married his high school sweetheart. He goes back to Canada and hangs with his friends in the summer. It really is a too good to be true. And hopefully the last part, to be true, does not factor in. And it doesn't look like there's going to be things that are going to derail him. It looks like this kid, head is on straight. And if you're Oklahoma City, you're like, man, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
What are you going to get, 3, 4?
It seems totally plausible.
Not 1, not 2.
Seems totally plausible. They have a 3-year window here. This is the first year. And after that, the money is going to force big decisions. Now they've got draft picks, and maybe they can bring in some more guys who are inexpensive, but they're not going to be able to keep this group together. But they can't keep this group together much past the summer of 27.
Well, you're assuming that guys are just going to leave.
I am.
Well, I'm not.
The money's good, and the money will be big somewhere. Man, if they find a way to keep them all together, then look out. But they can lose guys and still add guys.
What they've done is a tremendous job of getting a bench on the cheap and having them make valuable contributions.
In some case, starters on the cheap, too.
Well, yeah, you're always going to have that. But
Lou Dort, undrafted.
Well, right, I understand that. And Hartenstein, I'm sure, is not making big money.
Second-round pick, who they acquired.
But you need those bench guys.
Mm-hmm. You do. I mean, we've seen that. There are multiple teams this year that had stars, and we all know when the Joker sat down, Denver's numbers were terrible. They didn't have the bench.
I mean, I'm not nearly as good without you guys as my supporting cast.
That a kid, MJ. Way to go.
Right.
Drop a big old supporting cast.
Right. You guys, and
Yak, you were looking down. You were doing something else.
You're not making as much money as me, but I don't flaunt it. I value your contributions.
Oh, boy.
As long as I can be Luke Longley, we're good.
I value your concontributions,
nice,
man.
Yak. Very nice.
Yeah.
Luke Longley.
And you can be your Cliff Livingston, who played in San Diego. So there you go. That's your territorial NBA draft pick.
My territorial NBA draft pick. That's my territory, man. He was the next high school over from where I was in elementary school. 3 miles away.
The next high school over when you're in elementary school.
Yeah, by the time when I got to high school, he was like 4 high schools over because we moved. We moved a little further away from there.
I thought you were boys with him the whole time.
No chance. I
thought you were going down to Balboa Park hooping.
Well, we were.
With Cliff.
Yes.
I thought you called him Cliffy.
No. Nobody called him. I'll guarantee you nobody called him Cliffy.
Cliffy.
People called him the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah,
That's the guy.
I thought you were like Cliffy, like you and Romy.
He's 2 years. No. Cliff's 2 years older than me and was a foot taller than me and 100 pounds heavier than me.
But you're you.
And he was a star, yeah. And I doubled down. I didn't guard. I doubled down from the wing, and he didn't even notice. Oh, there's another guy here. I didn't notice.
Yeah,
I'm
but
busy
that's during
scoring.
the structured. I thought the unstructured on the blacktops, man. You guys were hooping.
No.
Send me a screen, Cliff.
Nope.
Yeah, maybe I'll pass it to you on a pick and pop.
Nice.
I called up basketball jargon. I got it on my computer.
Oh, you do? Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to talk about that we hit on today? Steve Cleveland talking music today. You were right about Liverpool. He does have all the Beatles photos.
I thought that he had told me way back when, because he and I go back, over 25 years.
Walked across the crosswalk at Abbey Road there, so.
He didn't do that. Or maybe he didn't. I don't know. Maybe he did do that. I don't know.
I thought when I brought that up, he said, I've got all that. I've done all that.
Walk across a crosswalk? That just seems so benign.
I know, but that's the album cover photo. It's a famous photo. Lots of people do
But
it.
I wouldn't take my shoes off.
I agree with that. I probably
On
wouldn't.
blacktop?
No.
Especially my feet. Bad.
Gnarly.
Yeah.
All right, DJ PK, when we come back, your feedback next. Stay with us.
And it's all over almost here.
Don't go nowhere.
Business folks, man, I want to help you. I want to endorse your product. Let's go. Here's what I need you to do. Text PK to 57500. Our sales staff will be in touch, and you and I will get together. I will endorse your product. Come on now. Let's get this thing done. Let's make you some money. Text PK to 57500.
DJ and PK, it is time for your feedback. What do you think about today's show?
No, I thought it was brilliant.
Why would five-star quarterback Ryder Lyons choose BYU? A lot of people think the money.
God told him to.
Doesn't think anybody said that.
No, I'm telling him.
Then it's money and playing time. Tony says money and a starting job next season.
Well, he's going to go on a mission, so
that's not next season.
not going to happen.
That's
His next season.
27 at
27.
the earliest.
Yeah.
So that really eliminates anybody. You can go to any school that has their
And
Arch Manning.
That's
and,
how most programs are looking at him as a 2027 recruit.
Yeah, that'd be interesting because they're really high on Bear Buckmeyer.
And
so
Enoch Watson, who's coming home off of a mission.
Enoch Watson, he coming home off a mission. How long is he serving?
He did the full 2 years.
Oh, well, good for him. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to have competition no matter where you go. Do you really want to go somewhere where there's zero competition? That's not real life. So.
I think that the thing most players run up against is there real competition? Or are they telling me that and they've already picked the other guy and I'm being played for the fool?
Oh, not a five-star kid. No, I don't think so. You'll have an opportunity
to compete.
The second you show up on campus, whether it's next year, the year after, whenever your mission's done, blah, 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 you will have that opportunity. They want that. They want competition. That football is, you got to be motivated when no one's watching.
We also talked with Brandon Huffman about national recruiting, and we talked about, five-star quarterback, where's he going to land? We also talked about top 10 linemen. Now, Ojo or Ojo? Is the J pronounced like in Spanish?
Well, that's what we heard from Brandon Huffman was Ojo.
Right, but I don't know how good his Spanish is.
Well, Brandon covers this for a living.
Spanish.
How good is Spanish?
Well,
Brandon covers this for a living. I think I would go with his
he's
pronunciation.
probably talked to him and got the kids.
Well, he said he saw him at that All-American game and probably interviewed him there.
Half-share Goog says Ojo will not choose the Utes. Texas is the team to beat. Ojo to Texas, so we're not going to have to say his name anyway.
Well, we'll
According
see.
to Half-share Coog.
Cougar fans talking about Utah recruits.
Utes are known for offensive linemen, so he's smart to check them out.
He is.
Intently.
But a kid from Texas going to Texas
He's
wouldn't
from
be surprising.
Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe so. We'll see.
He's a kid from the state of Texas. Now, Utah got in the mix very late on him, and he just added this offer
Well,
in
he's
the last
coming,
couple of
though.
weeks. So that's good news for
They're
Utah.
in the
that he-
mix, man.
I mean, Huffman explained the logic, and it's pretty
And-
spot on. It's sending multiple tackles to the draft.
And
So.
he canceled a visit to Oklahoma to come to Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a wreck. Don't mess with Oklahoma. I know the expression is "don't mess with Texas," but don't mess with Oklahoma.
Don't mess with Whittingham.
Don't mess with Kyle.
He'll take you down.
Brandon, why aren't you talking about the Utah Warriors rugby being number 1 in the nation, hosting the Western Conference Final against the Houston SaberCats?
Because I value my
job.
And it's important to me that we talk about what most people want to hear.
There it is.
Clipped and saved.
I mean, good for them. Way to go.
Yep.
But I got to talk about what the most people want to hear about.
There it is. There it is. All right. There's your feedback. Anything else you would like to share
No, man.
with the people? That's it. Done.
We're heading into a big time of year, man. The draft next week, NHL draft, BYU football, media days in Big 12 down in Texas, and then we come back, maybe take a week or so vacation, and then camp starts. I'm already getting jacked. I am.
So the NBA draft is next Wednesday and Thursday. The NHL draft is Friday, Saturday.
Right.
Correct.
They're just a boom, 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 4
Right.
days in a row.
Right.
Sort it all out.
Right.
And we have a 1 week lull, and as PK says,
Yeah.
it's Big 12 media days.
Yeah. And then after that, it's like, basically you wake up and camp is starting. And then a week into camp, I get bored.
We all do.
We all do.
But, maybe for BYU, they very well could have a quarterback competition. And anytime you have that's always the number one thing. Because there's no such thing as a running back competition, because if two guys are battling it, both of them are going to play.
Yep.
One guy can be a starter and get that stuff, but the other guy's had an opportunity to play.
But it's such high stakes at quarterback because
yeah.
one guy's going to get 100% of the snaps.
And BYU, they won't, and I get it, I support it 100%, address that stuff with Retzlaff, I get it, but they're going to have to acknowledge it, and then when camp starts, they've got a season to prepare for.
Right. But don't.
If the kid's there, they'll say, okay, this is why. They have to explain it. This is why we think he should be there. You can't just say, well, we're not going to talk about it if he's out there. And if he's not out there, you got to tell us why. And away we go. And if he's not out there, well, then the other guys, here you go. Who's going to win the job?
But don't make a decision, or in this case, don't make a statement until
Well, there's no point in making a statement
until you
now.
have to. Until you have
We're
to.
weeks away.
Yeah.
And then I get to an extent,
couple.
they'll have to address it at conference media days.
That's what I was going to say, July 8 and 9.
But they could say, well, we really don't have any new news now. But when camp starts,
He'll either be there or he won't.
yeah, right. And he can practice and play now, or throw the ball
And
around. That's fine.
It's 3 weeks to media days.
Yeah, and then maybe they'll have some update then, and then. But they've got a season with or without the kid. They've got a season to get ready for. So they got to go.
DJ PK, it's 97.5 The Zone. We're all done. Jake and Ben coming up next with a special guest for Jake. Stay with us.